let's get into it. You got the biggest fight physically, right? In terms of weight, the biggest main event in the history of Cage Titans. Tell me about that one.
Dude, I got to tell you, like, we've been at it for 13 years. We've never crowned a heavyweight title fight and our champion in the professional ranks. And I told you before, if I never matched a heavyweight fight, I would be happy. Brendan Battles was an unstoppable force when he broke on the scene probably 6, 7, 8 years ago. And he was that guy that was impossible to match. He had an opponent for us show up, weigh in, everything was good to go, showed up fight day, and basically had a mini stroke heart attack because he was fighting Brandon Battles and got stretched out in an ambulance before the fights even started. Like, Brandon Battles is a scary individual. State champ, wrestler, had a full ride to Yukon. Like, his accolades were crazy. And then he took some time off to, take care of his family. And then as he saw some guys that he was competing with at the same time, not necessarily heavyweights, just other people that were fighting on similar cards as him, he was like, you know what? I want to put one more run in and let me see if I have what it takes. And he came back, and he could have probably went to the route of like cherry picking easy fights. But he was a promoter's dream. He's just said to me, I want to know now. I don't want to get 4 bums and smash them and then be like, cool, I got to the UFC and I don't know if I have it. He goes, I want to know now, because he owns his business. He has kids. He's like, I want to know right away. Do I have what it takes to get to the next level? And when he came back, like, he put that challenge to me: get me the toughest fights you can get. And though he was so willing, it wasn't exactly easy, to get. Like, when you look at him, he's a true heavyweight, 6'3". He cuts to 265 pounds, and he's not some chubby slob. Like, he's built. So it was tough. Even though he was willing, it was tough finding somebody. In steps Ross Hilton, and how this fight came together. Ross Hilton, 6'6", 260 pounds. He's another one, true heavyweight. The Rasquash, knockout power in both hands. He just takes people's heads off. He's not scared of anybody. He was fighting up in NEF, and he fought in Bellator. I never reached out to him because I really just figured he was, an NEF guy, and I don't, like I told you earlier, I just show respect to other promotions. And I won't reach out to their fighters, but if they reach out to me, then we can have a conversation. So it just so happened a guy messaged me and said, hey, I'm trying to help my buddy and Ross Hilton get fights, and would you have anything for him? And I'm like, well, I'm so happy you reached out to me. I was like, I might have something. I'm like, I'd love to have Ross. I was a fan. And he's like, he'll fight anybody. And I was like, really? Anybody? And I was like, oh, well, I got Brandon Battles if you want to fight anybody. And he's like, yeah. He told me, anybody you have, he wants to fight for Cage Titans. Anybody you got, he's in. So now I call up Battles, and I'm like, hey, Ross. He's like, I don't think he's going to want to fight me. He's like, we've trained together. Like, you sure? And he's like, it's just not some guy that's trying to claim he's his manager. I said, no. He told me yes. He's like, I don't think it's going to happen, but sure, I'd fight him if he wants to. So I reached back out to the guy, and he's like, no, man, it's 100%. Like, I got carte blanche, whoever you want to put him in there with. He wants to fight for you. And I said, well, what about a title fight with Battles? And the rest is history. Ross Hilton, I didn't tell anybody about this. We brought Ross Hilton down January 7th. We brought him down to Cage Titans. We got him tickets. We did the contract and all that stuff. And a lot of people are like coming out to me like, who's that guy? Because he's got the dreads. He's 6'6". You see this guy and you're like, all right, what's this all about? Like, something. He's not a normal, 5'10" normal guy walking around. He's enormous, and he has a very unique look. And people are like, what's going on here? And then we bring him in the cage. We bring Battles in the cage. This is just a testament to both guys. Like, they want Ross throughout his career has fought the best of the best, and he's fought in the PFL. He's fought in Bellator. And he wants to test himself, and Battles is the same way. He wants to know that he can beat a guy like this, and he deserves to get to the next level and keep pursuing this as a career. Or if he can't beat a guy like Ross, he's going to go back and go back to raising his kids and doing his business and all that. So, I mean, I think that with both guys' mentalities, that they'll fight anybody. I think this is the perfect opportunity to put a title on the line. Right now, Brendan Battles is probably the number one prospect, because of his size, his accolades, his look. He has a lot of pause. He checks a lot of boxes, as they say, for somebody you're looking for. And I think that this is the perfect opportunity to put up a belt and may the best man win. And hopefully the Cage Titans cage can contain these two, because these are some behemoth guys. Local heavyweights, you don't see many guys built like these two. You see a guy with a little pot belly who's really a 185er, but he's walking around with a spare tire, so he's fighting at heavyweight. That's what you see at the local scenes. You don't see pure heavyweights like, Francis Ngannou, who's like, he's a true heavyweight who's cutting to 265. You don't see many guys that walk naturally at, 6'3", 6'4", 6'5", and are 265 pounds of muscle. You got that in this fight, and I think if the fans are in for a treat.
That is a real worry. Is the cage going to hold up these two behemoths?
I mean, hey, listen, man. I mean, don't sit front row. I'm not giving you no guarantee. I will say the cage makes an interesting play, though, because, with Ross Hilton, you got a guy who's 6'6", and he's a long, rangy striker with knockout power. You got Battles, who is a former state champ, 3-time All-American wrestler, all this stuff. You got to assume he's going to try to take him down. You got to assume that Ross wants to use his length to keep him at distance, to hit him with those shots. But it's a 20-foot cage. It's not a huge cage. Like the UFC cage, I think it's 28 feet. We have a smaller cage. So how does that come to play? Ross is a very good wrestler off the back of the cage. So he's used to having his back against the cage, and he's used it well. But then on the flip side, NEF uses, I think, an 18-foot cage, and Ross has had almost all of his fights in there. And he's been taking heads up there. So I don't think, I don't know, man. We'll see how it plays out. We'll definitely see how it plays out on fight night.
We will find out who will be the first ever Cage Titans heavyweight champion.
Yes.
The main event. And then the co-main event is a fun one as well. Bonds taking on D. Sabatino, the undefeated. D. Sabatino, what are your thoughts on that one?
Man, D-Sab, for our older fans, he's the Cal Ripken Jr. of Cage Titans, as Andy has coined him. There was a couple fights that he would fight seven shows in a row without taking the show off. This kid had his entire amateur career with Cage Titans as an amateur champion. He's had his entire pro career with Cage Titans. This guy is a grinder. He's super tough. He's super strong. Has heavy hands, has great submission games. He's very well-rounded. And as his opponent, Jacob Bone, Jacob Bone is Mr. Fight of the Night. He came to Cage Titans last year. He's had 2 fights with Cage Titans last year, both nominated for Fight of the Year, and he actually won Fight of the Year with his fight with Peter Barrett. And his other fight was against Joe Giannetti for the title, which was Fight of the Year candidate. This year, his first fight of this year, he takes on Ali Zabian, who very similar style to Zach D-Sab. Big, wild, big, strong looping punches, good takedowns. And it was a back and forth war. And then in the third round, Zabian shot that takedown. Bone with his BJJ black belt snatched up the neck, tapped him out. And the place went insane. He's really grown a fan base. He's from New York, but he's coming out here. He's had 2 great performances. And then here's in his third one, another amazing performance, and he wins. So that means that he gets a big name again. And, he's allergic to easy fights. He's like, I don't care. I don't want no up-and-comers. I want the toughest fights you can put in front of me. He wants Giannetti again. He would fight Barrett again. He fought 9-2 Ali Zabian, and then here he is taking on 11-2 Zach D. Sabatino. I think this fight is a tremendous co-main event. I think it's a huge test for D-Sab, which is why I like it for him, because if he can get past Bone, this shows that at 13-2, he has what it takes possibly to get to that next level. And as for Bone, I think this is just to cement his legacy at this point. He is one of the best 55ers around. And if you look at his record, you might not say that, but you got to look at who he's fought in the cage. And people fight for all different reasons. Some people fight for pretty records. Some people fight because they damn right just like to fight. And that's what Bone is. And at the end of his career, when it's all said and done, he's going to be able to hang his hat on the fact that he fought the toughest of the tough. And he stepped in there with anybody and everybody who's been offered to him. So if he can take out DSAB in this, now you go back, he took out 11-2 DSAB. If that happens this show, last fight he took out 9-2 Ali Zabian. Fight before that he took out 4-2 Jay Bakanowski. That's a 3-fight win streak with some very huge, impressive wins. So this could be huge for Bona at this stage of his career as well.
Trevor Goody's taking on Jack Congdon in a fun fight and a banger of a fight. I think this is one of the many sleepers on this card. Tell me your thoughts on this one, the matchup, the matchmaking, and all that's going into this one.
I think that Jack Congdon is Trevor Goody from 2 years ago. I think that Jack Congdon, I'm not going to say it's skill set. I'm just going to say from who they were. Jack Congdon is 5-0 amateur who held the Cage Titans amateur middleweight title. Welterweight title. Trevor Goody, I believe, was 5-0 or 6-0, held the Cage Titans welterweight title. Both had identical amateur careers. They ran through the amateur ranks. Both go into the pro ranks like stellar fighters, like huge, like upside, big prospects with a bunch of potential upsides. And Trevor started out fresh, pretty hot, then had a couple shortcomings, and he fought for the title. He came up short there, and he's trying to build himself back up. Jack is where Trevor was a year or so two ago, before he got the title shots and things like that, where he was a prospect. And Jack is that. He's 2-0 now as a pro. And here he is taking on a huge task, a tall task, no pun intended, in Trevor Goody. This is the biggest fight of his career and the toughest fight of his career. And I think this will tell you what direction he goes from. And I think it's kind of like maybe a passing of the torch type fight where like Trevor takes out this young up-and-comer and is like, whoa, not so fast, young guy. I still got this torch, and I'm still the big dog at 170, and I deserve to get back into title contention. Or Jack rips that torch out of his hand and is like, yeah, sit down, guy. I'm the new sheriff in town, and he continues his ascent through the ranks. I think that's what makes this fight exciting. And furthermore, what I love about it is Jack Congdon is showing that he is a fighter's fighter. He's not afraid of anybody. Many people at 2-0 probably wouldn't take a fight of this caliber who one fight removed, Trevor was fighting for a title. And here is Jack Congdon at 2-0. I was like, I don't care if he fought for a title. I don't care if he beat a Gracie on Bellator. I don't care anybody like that. I want to test myself in this fight. I thought the call out by Jack Congdon is not very vocal, but when he does get on the mic, he commands a presence, and he's very well spoken. And I thought he did it super respectfully. He ran through his opponent last event, and he was like, hey, Trevor, let's do it. Thought it was nice, respectful. Can't be more excited for a fight like this.
Now, there are so many other fun fights on this card.
And I know.
We can go one by one, or you could tell
Pat Casey versus Marty Navis. Are you kidding me? Like, you think you got this great fight locked down between Jack Congdon and Trevor Goody in the welterweight division, and you're like, all right, cool. We got a huge heavyweight fight. We got a huge lightweight fight. Oh, we got Trevor and Congdon. We got a huge welterweight fight. Like, we don't need any more welterweights on the card. And again, in that hold my beer moment, it's like, oh, Marty Navis is like, yeah, I'll put my name in. Pat Casey's like, yeah, I'll put my name in. He's like, I'll take Marty. Marty's like, I'll take Pat. And they're like, whoa, like 9-6 Pat Casey and 6-2 Marty Navis. I say this when we announce this fight. Every adjective you could use to describe Marty, you could take the name Marty out and put Pat in, and they would be identical. You hear beast, warrior, fighter, gritty, tough, brawler, all these things you talk about. One, you don't even know who I was just talking about. I could have been talking about either one of them when I was saying those words. I think these guys are carbon copies of each other. I think their fight styles are very similar. I think that I've been a huge fan of Pat Casey for many years. I've been watching him. He's another guy that's been fighting out in Western Mass, so I never reached out to him, just out of respect to those promotions out there, figuring he's their hometown guy. Very similar situation to the Ross thing. And when he came across my desk, I was like, oh, shit, I can get a Pat Casey on my card. Let's go. And, Marty Navis, we've seen him, another guy. All his amateur fights with Cage Titans, all his pro fights with Cage Titans. This guy's been around. I could talk about Marty for days. But like for Cage Titans fans that have not seen Pat Casey fight, go look up some of his fights. This kid brings it. And I know the Marty Davis fans are insane and they are crazy on fight night. I promise you guys, if Pat Casey was fighting anybody besides Marty, you would be a huge fan. And that's my pitch why you should get excited for this fight, because they're very similar fighters. They're both going to go down swinging. And that's the type of fight that just got to get the juices flowing. They're man, like this is not disrespect to either one of the fighters. Like, I don't want to say it wrongly. So somebody will probably take it, just as long as no one clips it. Technique is out the window. These guys are just dogs that want to go at it and fight. And, you think about technique fighters like Wonder Boy Thompson might come to mind, Demetrius Johnson, like these technical fighters. And I'm not saying that neither one of these guys don't have technique, but that's not the first word that comes to my mind. I'm just like, throw that word out. These guys are Mike Perry-esque that are just coming to take your face off. And for those like blood savage, like the people that come to the fights for that, this is going to get your blood boiling, and you're going to see an insane fight.
You mentioned Marty being a guy who's competed with you guys through his amateur career, now in his pro days. Another guy on this card that's also been through the ringer with you is Tyler Smythe, who's making a huge return, undefeated, taking on Jeff Joy. And this is I can't wait for this one, man. This is going to be a banger for sure. Tell me your thoughts about this one.
Well, I want to see your face right now. This interview doesn't get dropped for what, 2 days?
Yeah. No, it get next week.
All right, so breaking news right here, and you're going to be the first person to hear it. Jeff Joy is out. And I don't know if you can get more excited for a fight, but I think you might. You know a guy named Mitch Raposo?
Holy shit, I do know that name.
Tyler Smythe is taking on Mitch Raposo at Cage Titans 59. After I get off with you, I actually have to record a breaking news video that we're dropping tomorrow. But you technically heard it here first. So there you go. Jeff Joy, unfortunately, did have to pull out on 2 days ago. Literally, as I'm talking to you, Mitch just texted me and actually said, please use my good updated photo for my fight announcement. So we just kind of put the ink to this probably 2 hours ago. Wow. Man, this fight's going to be bananas. It's like, how did I get this fight card any bigger? And a name like Mitch Raposo, who's been on The Ultimate Fighter, he's been on the Contender Series. And again, he's fought through Cage Titans his entire amateur career, his pro fights till he got to The Ultimate Fighter. This kid was like one of the original blue chip prospects. I remember him training at 13, 14 years old, people being like, yo, this kid's going to be in the UFC. He's trying to get back there. And for 1 minute, how big are the balls on Tyler Smythe? Because, he's 2-0, and he had a 6-3 amateur career. He won a belt with us. He won a belt with NEF. He won a belt on Ohio and out of scraps. Like, this kid was a beast amateur fighter, and he's very early at 2-0 in his career. And when Jeff Joy pulled out, I offered him a pro debut. And then he's like, well, you got anybody else at 125? I said, yeah, I got somebody else, but I'm not sure it would really make sense right now. And I'm talking to his coach, Nate Libby. He's like, I'll throw the name at me anyways. I was like, I got Mitch Raposo. He's like, what's his record? He goes 7-1. He goes, I'll get back to you in the morning. And now Nate and I are on very opposite spectrums of our time. I am at a restaurant and he runs a construction company. So he's up at 5 a.m. I'm going to bed at 1 o'clock. So I wake up this morning to a text was like, we'll take Mitch. And I was just like, oh shit. All right. Okay. So then I got on the phone with Tyson and worked out all the details. And this fight literally probably got made within the last 2 hours. And actually, as I'm on the phone with you, Mitch is texting me about what picture I'm going to use for the announcement. So there you have it. Your mouth dropped. So I'm assuming you like this one.
That is, I feel like that could be a main event. I know we have the heavyweight, so that obviously is not happening. But this one, it has the guys that could be, it could be built around these two.
I mean, and that's the big thing about Cage Science 59. It's like without Battles and Ross, you could have D Sabin in at 11-2 taking on Jacob Bone as the main event. You could take that fight out, and you could have Marty and Pat Casey 6-2 and a 9-6 guy, Bellator vet, BKB vet. They could be headlining. You could have, Trevor and Jack. You could have Mitch and Tyler Smythe now. Like you could have, like there's so many fight cards, and I've said this multiple times on our Table Titans podcast. Like I hate promoters that go, "This is the best card yet. You got to get your tickets. This is the biggest fight card we've ever done." I just think it's bullshit because then you got to lie next time when you say it. Like I have never said it in 13 years in 60 plus events, but I'm saying it this time for the first time, and it's genuine. This is probably the biggest, most stacked fight card, top to bottom, between all the pros that we have, all the storylines, all the implications of future matchups. We didn't even talk about Valdina and Will Smith. I mean, seeing the winner of that fight, maybe Smythe and Mitch, maybe see him when Jeff Joy gets back in the mix. One of them could fight Jeff Joy. Let's not forget about Cam Arnold that's over there waiting to come back too. Joe Poirier, who's fighting at 130, and now he's 1-0, looking to go 2-0. Like there's so many things that are moving on this fight card. It really is, I used to do fight cards where I'd have 10 amateurs and maybe 1 or 2 pros. Now we're getting to this territory where, we got 8, 9 pros on the card. We got 2 title fights for amateurs and then a couple amateur fights. Like we're really stacking the deck. And then when you go down the card to the amateur fights, it's like, who's not excited to see Jake Kasky and Joe Atala fight? Jake Kasky has fought for Cage Titans twice, both fight of the nights, one of them fight of the year. This kid, everybody's like, oh, when's Kasky fighting again? And Attila made a huge debut 2 events ago, and he's just an exciting, like, striker and just, like, flamboyant, like, out there, in your face, like, exciting fight. Will Doolin and Brody McDougal. Will Doolin won knockout of the year last year in Muay Thai for his elbow knockout. The year before that, Brody McDougal won knockout of the year. These guys are squaring off, and that might be the opening fight of the night.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, there's a lot of good ones.
Getting your that's one that I'm pumped about. That's a Muay Thai bout, right?
Yeah, that's a Muay Thai bout. So Brody. All right, spoiler alert. Brody is fighting for the Cage Titans welterweight title on July 22nd. We're gonna announce against 2 on fight night. So he was waiting around for that title fight, and Brian Ferguson was fighting Will Doolin. And when Ferguson just had to pull out yesterday, in the same message was like, "Hey, Ferguson's got to pull out, but we have another guy from our gym, Brody, that will take it if they'll be willing." And I'm like, this is one of those other rare instances where it's like people seem more excited for the new fight with the replacement fight. And that doesn't happen often. Usually it's like so-and-so is supposed to fight, GSP, and it's like, or whatever. It's like, oh, GSP is out. And it's like, cool. No matter what name they say after that, you're going to be not as excited as the original. That was an example where people are more excited now about the Brody McDougal versus Will Doolin. And that doesn't happen often when you have a replacement fight. And I think what we broke tonight, Mitch fighting Tyler Smythe, like everybody was excited about Tyler Smythe versus Jeff Joy. So immediately when I say, Jeff Joy's out, you're like, oh, shit. Well, I hope Tyler Smythe's still fighting. At least he still gets to fight. I don't care what name Mike says. As long as Smythe still gets to fight, I should at least be happy Smythe's still fighting. And you kind of get into that little headspace. And it's like, oh, yeah, Mitch Raposo. And you're like, oh, shit. Like, you don't get those reactions often. So I think this fight card is going to be one for the ages. And, we talked a little earlier about, like, sometimes the buildup and the hype lead up to the fights and actually come through in the cage. I have strong feelings that I think that energy in that building brings something different out of these fighters. And there's no way that the hype leading up to this fight card is not going to be delivered on fight night. There's way too many bangers on this card. There's way too much at stake for a lot of these fighters, and they're really going to deliver. And the fans are going to be in for a treat.
Anything about Cage Titans 59 that you want to talk about, fights that you want to maybe mention, individuals that you maybe want to shout out in preparation before we get out of here? There's a few more questions I have for you, but
yeah, well, I would say hit me with the questions because we've been on for 1:08 and I only got 7% battery left. So
shit. Okay, I'll be quick with these last few.
I've been looking around my little studio here to see if I have a charging block, but I can't find one. So I would say this. I mean, honest to God, top to bottom. We talked about a lot of the pros. We got Miguel Sevesin defending his title against undefeated Sergey Paransuko. We have Colin Robinson, who was our first ever Muay Thai champion at 185. Now going back to MMA and trying to capture the middleweight title in MMA against former title holder Jidafer Ojukwu. Those two fights are huge. Andrew Jacobs is returning, taking on Joe Lexus. That's also breaking news. Andrew Jacobs' original opponent, Sean Wakefield, had to pull out a day or two ago, and Joe Lexus was scheduled for Reality, couldn't get matched up, so he put his name in. It just so happened to work out. Steve Hill taking on Timmy Walsh. Timmy Walsh was a fight, knockout of the year contender. Honestly, the whole entire card. Go to cagesidesfc.com, look at the entire fight card, or go to Tapology. And I know they have a great feature where you can vote who you think is going to win, how they're going to win, what round. Have a little fun with it.